Hello, this is Pens of John Paul II. My name is Alan. I'm the moderator. Joining us today is Laurie Elizabeth Flynn. She is the writer of several books. Her first one was called First, appropriately. And she has just brought out Last Girl Lied To. And she is currently, there is one in the process. We will talk to her in a few minutes about where she's at with the new book that's coming out in June. Am I right?
Yes.
Yes. So
She's kind of blocked off from the show.
oh, is she? Can we turn the camera so we can see her?
Hello.
There she is. You
Hi.
can see her.
It's just
Okay.
that was just because I was like this.
Okay. All right. Now, before we get started with Laurie, I just want to talk briefly about something with you kids. You might have all heard in the news what's going on at Saunders Secondary School. Has everybody heard? They are having a problem right now between the Native kids and the Arab kids fighting, right? When I went there a number of decades ago, maybe one or two, it was the Native kids that were the bullies, and I remember that they used to block off all the doorways when they wanted to fight with somebody. And, you know, it was kind of not very comfortable walking through that kind of gauntlet of hate, right? And now we have a lot of immigrants. And it's very natural when people immigrate to a new country that they congregate in their own cultural group too, right? So humans are funny. When we get tribal like that, the opportunity for violence, it becomes greater, right? So, you know, what we need to do is to invite everybody to the one human tribe, right? So, one of the things you guys can do around here is you can be bridges. When you see a group like that, because we have groups that are new to Canada, you can go and you can introduce yourself, you can say hello, you can invite them maybe to sit with your friends at lunch, or you can go and you can ask if you're friends and you can sit with them, right? And everybody benefits that way. And I know I can see Tara down there. She's asking me, Alan, what does any of this have to do with writing? And that's a really good question, Tara. Because as writers, the more different people that you interact with, the more templates or models you have for characters. So you win two ways, right? You expand your experiences as a writer, which is important. We talked about that a little last year, you two might remember. It's a very big tradition with writers to expand their horizons and get more experiences, because it deepens and enriches your writing, right? Now, I'm not suggesting you guys go find a civil war to fight in, like Ernest Hemingway did, or become hobos like Thomas Highway did. But here,
The name Thomas Highway. Did he live on the highway by any chance?
that was also his name. Yes, and he lived on the back of a motorcycle. And he wrote his first book, they say, on napkins and toilet paper. That's the what do you call it? Urban myth. Anyways, about him.
Guy.
But all I'm saying is that you have opportunities here to expand your horizons, and at the same time help our school community, right, by being bridges, right, and by being welcoming, by actually going up and introducing yourself and saying hello, right?
I've always had trouble with that.
And then, well, you know, they won't hurt you. They don't bite just because they're from a different country or culture.
Sorry, it's my
and that
culture to bite.
we don't invite too many cannibals to this country. So, you know, it's nothing that hurts, and there's a lot to gain by it, right? They benefit too because they get to practice their English.
I have trouble
right?
talking to everybody at first, and then everything after that is smooth.
Yeah. So, I want to get on with our guest. And I am currently reading this book. I'm almost through it. And this is a really good book. And all our viewers out there and I would recommend it. I understand that your mother is
My mom is reading that book, yeah.
at her book club.
Oh, at her work.
And I actually ran into a editor of a literary magazine who's featuring you this month. Yeah. So, as I said, you had 2, and you were working on the 3rd.
Yes.
Right. And the first thing here I noticed, there's a theme in this book about best girlfriends and boys getting in between them. Now, is that something from personal experience, or is that just a common issue with teenage girls' relationships?
It's not a personal thing that happened to me per se, but I think everyone has to some extent experienced like a toxic friendship where one person's giving more than the other, or I think someone being in a relationship definitely can change that dynamic, and a lot of people don't handle that well for the first time and alienate their friends, or somebody gets jealous. So I think there's a lot to work with for fiction.
And it was a really good theme, like really good, well put together as a kind of a repetitive theme, which is a really unique trick. The other thing I really liked about the book is how you combine first person and third person, and it's something that used to be done a lot more, especially when you were at the thoughts of the character, and you really expanded on that, and it really worked really well in this book. And that, well, your process itself, are you a plotter?
No.
Or are you a seat of the pants writer? Seat of the pants writer?
Full on seat of
It's
the pants right
it's
here.
plotters and pantsers
Yeah.
to keep with the rhythm.
I am up to
And
pants
do me
are
a favor.
100%.
Inside
Sometimes I
there,
wish I
there's a
wasn't.
pilot.
What does that
On
mean?
the right in the back.
It means you
Hold
don't
it.
plot ahead
The
of time.
pantser doesn't usually. A plotter would usually come up with. Usually has like a set timeline. They know and before they usually type or write anything, they like to have
And this
a
idea.
definite idea of what they want to do.
And
The pantser is more focused on getting the work done. By getting the work done, they can proofread, and then they can change stuff how they would like to for later.
Now, it's a more organic process. Now, I use both myself in this group because we are newer writers. I usually use a plot outline, which Ben just happened to gather up for us, and that. So that's one of the things we were doing. But you just, right, you have the concept. Now, at the back of the book, it was saying in your sleeve, right up there, it was saying that you thought of the idea when you were flying to Costa Rica on your honeymoon and you were looking out the plane window. Ideas for books come pretty well everywhere.
Pretty much
Yeah,
anywhere.
and that. So we were talking about daydreaming the other day with one of our characters, and this is one of those moments where you have a functional daydream and it becomes a book.
Yeah.
And that. Now, you are traditional published, with a traditional publisher. Did you go through an agent? Like, did you find an agent first, or did you approach the publisher directly?
No, I found an agent first. So with a lot of like the bigger publishers, you need an agent to submit to editors there. So some smaller presses will accept like unagented submissions, but most of the time with the bigger ones, they need to have an agent first. So that's the route I pursued.
Yeah. So, did you find an agent here in London, or did you have to go to one of the big ones in Toronto?
No, mine. My agent who sold these books is based in California. We parted ways, and I'm working with a New York agent now.
A New York agent. Oh, well, she's gone big time now. Okay. We all dream of New York agents.
I do have one question though for you. Isn't it all weird the fact that like, you're seeing your own writing out there getting praise like now? Like Yeah, like
It's a little surreal, I guess. I think it's sort of when you put it out there for publication like this, it's sort of you have to come to the realization that other people are going to like it, some people are not going to like it, and a lot of people are going to make their opinions public. So you kind of have to get used to hearing and reading about. Thank you. Opinions that might make you happy to hear, or some that you really don't like hearing, but.
So what you're trying to go for is people like and hate your work because they're so divided on it. They hate it for the right. They hate it for good reasons. That is, like, they don't agree with the character, rather than they think your writing is bad.
You never know what you're going to hear, but yeah, a lot of times they go, your characters are so unlikable. Well,
yeah, you do. You will get.
someone's opinion.
You will get. Some bad. Like you will get some bad criticism. You'll get some constructive criticism, and you'll get some praise over time when you write. Right? I mean, with my own books, I have a lot out there, and some people will take time to write a good review, but a lot of times the ones who take the time to write the review are the ones who don't like it.
That's true.
Well, at least you're feeling upwards, not downwards.
I think it's important to have a thick skin before even getting that stage. That if you want to do the traditional publishing route with a bigger publisher, and you do start querying agents to try to get them to represent your work, it's a lot of rejection involved with that too.
Yes.
Like for me, I can imagine like publishing my book when it's done, and then like going for a walk and seeing someone reading that and being like, oh.
That's a weird sensation.
Yeah.
That is a weird sensation, and that. Now, you were talking about the rejection and stuff. The other step of it is the acceptance, and then the red marker of death comes out. Were there a lot of rewrites, say, with your first novel?
Well, I think with all of my published books, it's all like these two, and the one that's I just submitted copy edits for. So there's a lot of revision involved all the time. Usually, when your agent, before they put it on submission to publishers, they will you'll do revisions with them, and then once it gets acquired by a publisher, you'll do revisions with your editor. Like there's usually one big round, and then there's line edits, so sort of tinkering on a sentence level, and maybe cleaning up some different items or changing things. And then there's copy edits, which is the really nitpicky stuff.
Yeah.
In any of your edits, do they sometimes outright say that you need to change the book very exponentially? Like you have to change a big plot element because, I don't know, something's wrong with it. Like you need to steer it off of what path it originally needed to be put onto.
Normally, like, they're not that heavy-handed. It's, usually you've talked to them on the phone beforehand, before, like, accepting their offer of publication, so you can sort of talk about your vision to make sure it aligns. But in my experiences, I know it's different for everyone, depending on the amount of work the book needs, but in my experiences, I've had editors who, had put together an edit letter, which is what they normally do with what they'd like to see, or their thoughts and suggestions. It's always been very much a back and forth reciprocal relationship, and these aren't orders. They're just these are our suggestions. We're happy to hash it out, or brainstorm ideas with you back and forth. But no one's ever said you absolutely have to make these changes, because in the end it has to feel like your vision for your book, and a good editor will understand that.
And they're like, it really depends on your editors. Like, I mean, I've had a book come back slashed, and I've had a book come back with nothing. Like, I mean, it really depends on the editor. It sounds like you have really good editors. You're actually putting out a really good property. Now, the new book is coming. You say you're just at the copy edit?
Yeah.
You just submitted it?
So the big revision piece has been done. The line edits have been done. Now the copy edits have been submitted. So basically, the next step is I'll get advanced reader copies of the book, and then do something called first pass pages, which is where basically you read it for any last minute little tiny nitpicky items that weren't picked up in copy edits, and then after that it becomes a
Yeah. And even going through all that process, something can slip through. Yeah, like so when we do our own editing, and you get your book and you're reading it, and oh my God, they spelled the T-E-H. It happens, right? And that I'm looking forward to it. I still have to read your first book though. And that was very good. Do any of you have any other questions for her? Go ahead.
What do you think of books with a very, very large cast of characters?
I think they can definitely work, as long as all the characters' threads are treated, something important, and they all have a place within the story.
Do you have an example of a book with a book or two with a big cast of characters?
I know. Lord of the Rings series.
Oh yeah.
Although that's more of a series than a book.
Well, that was a trilogy, but
Williams, please call the office. Miss Williams, please call the office. Thank you.
Series, sorry.
I
yeah.
didn't think of anything off the top of my head.
Well, there's most big Game of Thrones, big. There's a lot of big science fiction. Normally, that type of book is going to be a fantasy, a science fiction, that type of thing. In general fiction, and you did some suspense thrillers. Are they all suspense thrillers, or?
First is a contemporary.
Contemporary.
And then, this one and my next one are both psychological.
Thrillers. So in those, your casts are usually smaller and more focused, right? And more deeper characters, because in this case it's a psychological thriller, right? So
do you have any examples of like good sci-fi monster books that I can take inspiration from? Because I don't have much right now.
are you big on sci-fi?
That's not my wheelhouse, I'm sorry. I write pretty much strictly contemporary.
There are some, and you know what I'm going to do for you, Luca, is by our next meeting, I will have a list there. Talking about lists of books, has anybody seen the list of recommended reading that I put on our site?
Yes.
Yeah, those are mostly classics, and that, but it's a good grounding for any writer to read some of the classics. Go ahead, Tyler.
How do you know if you've got a decent idea for a book? How do you know that you've got a story worth telling?
Sometimes you don't always know right away. Whenever I always I keep in my notes app on my phone like all my little ideas, seedlings, and then if I'm sort of let things percolate a bit, and then I might write like a mini query for one, just so that I in my head know what the hook of the story is and kind of what I want to tell. And then I might start writing it, and sometimes I'll get like, a little bit into it and be like, this isn't really what I thought it was going to be, and it's not holding my interest anymore. Then I might move on to something else. I might go back to it. So I think you kind of have to play with it a little bit and explore it. And if you're a plotter, maybe make an outline. If you're someone like me who doesn't plot, just write up a little query for it, and then start writing it.
I think your best bet, your best way to do it is if you're writing it and you lose interest in it, then your audience, your readers, will probably do the same thing.
So an audience to yourself first.
Yeah, like you have to be interested in the book, in the story that you're telling. If you are not interested in the story that you are telling, no, what do you guys, that's one plot outline.
One.
Oh.
Okay,
We're just passing them all down.
okay, just bear with me, okay. All right, so, like the book that we are writing now, right? We sat and we plotted it all out to 40 chapters, right? And those 40 chapters held our interest, right? So that is a semi-good idea, like way. Remember I said I made she makes her notes, right? Laura makes her notes. I have all my plot outlines. And I look over them and if I need time, everybody got one? Here's one for you, by the way, just in case. If everybody has a different way of doing it, but what you do is you look over your story ideas, right? Which one interests you? If it interests you enough to write it, it's worth writing. Even if you're the only one in the end who's going to read it, all books are worth writing if you have the interest in writing, right? Because I don't know about you, if you wrote any that nobody's ever going to see, but you still get that experience and that knowledge, and it still makes you a better writer in the end, right?
I totally agree. I have a few that won't see the light of day, but I learned from them, and it's never time wasted, well spent, even if it doesn't end up being published.
Speaking of time and sort of process, I've got a couple of questions for this. Do you have a daily writing quota? And if so, do you think that all writers should have a daily writing quota, or should it's just that they should write whenever they can and then research whenever they can't?
I think it sort of just depends on each person. I know some people who like to write every single day. For me, it's a little hard to do that. Sorry about baby and toddler, so it sort of depends on their schedules. But I think it's all about making the time, because everyone's busy, and it's easy to make excuses not to do it. But I think it's making it into a habit, however that works for you. So whether that means writing in the morning or writing in the evening, or whenever you have free time.
Yeah, no, because for me, it's just like I don't really get much opportunity to write the chapters, so I just spend my time building up the world and then seeing and sort of fleshing out the characters for that. Is that considered is that an okay process?
Yeah, that's work. So that's all the work that'll help you write the book each year, right? So I think that's a good use of time. And then once you start getting into the story, hopefully that all that background that you put into it will help you the process go a little bit faster, and then you'll get into a bit of a routine with that.
And in this group, I definitely, and we talked about this, we definitely want to try to write every day, even if it's just a sentence or two. Get in that habit, strengthen your writing muscles, right? So, it's just like working out at the gym, right? The more you write, the easier it is. I can spit out a finished novel in 6 weeks because I've been writing every day for like 4 years, right? So it's the same as that, your first novel is going to be harder, but you've already got a novel. You and Tara already have novels under your belt. These are our two writers from Crossroads last year, Tara and Tyler here. So you're on your second novel already. So when you go to write your third, you're just same place Laura is, right? So when you guys go on to your third novels, you're a lot younger at the time you guys started your third novels than I was. I don't know about you, but, right? So, yeah.
I was just wondering if I was starting too late.
No way.
No, you're doing very well. And even from last year, I read the chapter you just wrote for Malfunction, and it was greatly improved. The structure was better. One of the things when you do write, do want you all to focus on manuscript form, right? And using manuscript form, because if you get to the point, like Laurie, and you want to approach a agent and maybe go through the traditional publishing rather than the indie publishing that we do, that's the industry standard. That's what they're going to expect from you. We're not all Thomas Highway. They're not going to accept it on napkins and you know what I mean. And they're not going to hire someone to type it out for you, right? So get used to using that, and also get used to, please, even just a sentence or two every day.
It's true. You will see your improvement over time too. Because if I look back at what I was working on 5 years ago, and then what I work on now, it's a big difference just in that time. So.
Yeah, it's sort of even in 1 year or two, I'm gonna have to accept that. Well, I made my book. Can't really change it now, but yeah, at least I made it.
But you can revise it.
Yeah, that's fair.
And don't become one of those writers who revises his book for 5,000 years. Because we are our worst critics. We are never gonna, I can look at any book I publish and you might even be at the same thing. And you always want to make changes. You can make changes on that book to the day you die. And sometimes you just gotta let them go. Just like children, when they grow up, you gotta let them go. Fly out of the nest, right?
Oh, right. And then just, we've answered most of the questions here, so it's just that. Just about more integrating personal experience and personal outlooks into your story. There's a difference between character. There's a difference between just putting in a self-insert of yourself into your story and having I don't think that's a good idea most times. But just how much of yourself how much of your own personality do you put into the characters of your story?
I feel like it always, elements of things you've gone through or things you've thought always creep through, and that kind of makes the book relatable to others. So I think who you are as a person and the experiences you've gone through are always going to, inform your writing a bit, and I think that's a good thing. It makes your writing voice your own, and it also allows other people to relate to your characters. I think it doesn't mean one character is you, but it's little bits of you might be in different characters.
And your experiences are going to come through, and that's why we always talk about experience, getting experience, trying new things. I think last year we were talking about it, and you guys all joined the play. That was a different experience, and this year we are actually using that experience that you had at the play in Malfunction, right? So that's just an example where that's going to be a bit of you and a bit of what you went through in your book, right?
How do you feel about reading for leisure? For some of the material that I've been reading to help with my writing and structure, it seems to have this sort of implication that at higher stages of learning, you can once you get to a certain point, you can't really read for leisure anymore. You've got to look for that meaning. You've got to make sure that the plot is consistent. You've got to always have a critical eye. Although sometimes, I just want to experience the media. What's your opinion on the matter?
Well, it's kind of hard not to read with a critical eye now, I find, but that doesn't mean I don't still read it. I read widely. I do read a lot of books in the genres I'm writing, because I think that's important to grow as an author, is to read widely, both your genre and others, but especially if you want to be published, making sure you know current things in your genre, what works, what doesn't. So I guess I don't know. I do read things critically, but it's more like I'm analyzing why I liked something or why I didn't like. Okay, so this worked for me. It was really interesting. Maybe this didn't work so much, and questioning why, and you can sort of apply that to your own work and as lessons. I think I enjoy reading even more now than I did before, though. Even though it's kind of like I've heard people who have worked on TV shows or work in media. It's like they know. They sort of pick things apart, and it's not like this magical experience unfolding on the screen, but because they look at things so critically. So I don't know if it's anything like that, but I do read very critically now. But it's more with an eye for structure, character development, things that why I gravitate towards something and why a reader would.
Okay. And that's always really important with a writer. And it won't go away, right? And the more you read over time, it almost gets like, wow, I'm reading this book and I kind of can see where this story is going. I kind of very early in the book kind of have an idea of what's going to happen. It doesn't stop me from reading. I mean, if you go to my house is full of books, and I've read most of them, and I keep reading, right? Writers write, writers read. That's a mantra that's been around forever. And so don't stop reading, and don't stop developing that critical eye she was talking about, because that hones your skill.
Yeah, doesn't mean reading isn't still like an immersive experience when you're sucked into this other world. It's just you're, as a writer, just a little bit more observant than maybe somebody else would be.
Go ahead.
I need to leave. I have a long walk home and my dad can't pick me up today.
Okay, you go ahead. All right. Thank you. All right, now, I want to move on because we wanted to talk about some of your writing, because this is our 5th week, and the 5th week is always when we talk about the books that you are developing. This year we're doing something a little bit different, where each of our, while we are writing our group book, Malfunction, they are also developing their own story idea for their own book this year. Now, Ben, have you worked on yours? No? I know you have. How about you, Luca? Did you work more on your story?
Yeah, I've started working on it. I've actually started writing it now, but I'm only got like for plot outlines I've gone to chapter 3, but I'm starting to write out the actual chapters now.
Okay, that's good. How about you?
I'm still kind of ironing it out, but I've gotten to chapter 13 in the plot outline.
Well, there you go. Okay. Now, the other thing before we go, Tyler's got some stuff, but before we go to Tyler, what you have is the complete plot outline that we finished on Malfunction, right? And what you don't have there, Laurie, is the chapters that have been assigned to you, okay? And that, now this year, rather than pick and choose like we did last year, I did assign them just so that we could get going. So if there's a chapter somebody has that maybe you'd rather not write or would write, you can trade as long as they agree and you inform me, so when we credit you in the book, right, we credit you for the right chapters, right, and that. And now I have just knocked off another chapter. So far we've only got one in from Tyler. If you guys want that pizza and don't want to get me that coffee,
I know.
At this point, I'm just doing it for personal gratification.
yeah, well, I'm, but don't tell me that. I'm trying to inspire you here,
Actually, I wanted to know what was your book about?
Okay, we can if you're having problems, like that's why you bring it up here, you know. If you think you're not interested in that book, we can toss some ideas around and see what we can get going for you.
Yeah, I feel like I've almost written myself into a corner.
Well, then that's
the world has almost. I've made it too limiting in a way that I don't necessarily like it that much.
well,
I
okay.
mean, you can just put it off for later.
No, but the other thing he can do is bring it up here, and we can brainstorm with him, and we can expand his world, and we can give him some constructive criticisms, some suggestions that might help him out, right? So, would you like to do that? Okay. Do you have it with you?
Yeah, I have most of the stuff that I've written down.
Okay, well, why don't you bring it out and we can go over some stuff. I forgot to bring that stuff for you. Not right or would write. You can trade as long as they agree and you inform me. So when we credit you in the book, right? We credit you for the right chapters, right? And that. And now I have just knocked off another chapter. So far we've only got one in from Tyler. If you guys want that pizza and don't want to get me that coffee,
I know.
At this point, I'm just doing it for personal gratification.
yeah, well, I'm, you know, but you know, don't tell me that. I'm trying to inspire you here, you know.
Actually, I wanted to know what was your book about?
Okay, we can, if you're having problems, like that's why you bring it up here, you know. If you think you're not interested in that book, we can toss some ideas around and see what we can get going for you.
Yeah, I feel like I've almost written myself into a corner.
Well, then that's
the world has almost. I've made it too limiting in a way that I don't necessarily like it that much.
well, okay.
I mean, you can just put it off for later.
No, but the other thing he can do is bring it up here, and we can brainstorm with him, and we can expand his world, and we can give him some constructive criticisms, some suggestions that might help him out, right? So, would you like to do that? Okay. Do you have it with you?
Yeah, I have most of the stuff that I've written down.
Okay, well, why don't you bring it out and we can go over some stuff. I forgot to bring that stuff for you.
That's fine. We can bring that. We can
I
bring
am
that.
going to bring it tomorrow, and if I forget it, I'm going home to get it.
Oh, it's just some simple entry. He had
For some reason, I thought tomorrow we were having another meeting. I'm like,
No.
I
It's
really wish we did.
and that.
I can't wait for next. I can't wait for next time.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Ben, and that. Sorry, I just thought you might be interested.
Yeah.
That's the book we're writing. Yeah.
Most of what I have down is barely anything.
Okay, well, just tell us let's start with the synopsis of your story.
The main idea is that it's almost like a post-apocalyptic society that's out in space orbiting Earth, and the society has devolved into almost a hive mind to control everyone, because the reason that the world ended was just over time people got too greedy and they only saw it for themselves. So by creating the hive mind, they got everyone to think the same and act the same, so that they wouldn't have anything that could destroy them.
Excellent concept for dystopia. Excellent. That is a really good start. Now, obviously, you want either a villain or a main character, like a protagonist, who is having thoughts of their own, right? And everybody agree that's a good suggestion for this story.
I already have.
Okay, so you have that.
Like 1984 I've seen is a frequently touted example.
Yeah, that's an example of a type of dystopia, but this hive mind thing, that was more of brainwashing.
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
And this is a hive mind. Now, how did you work it through technology? Do they have a brain implant?
They have a brain implant that gets surgically implanted at birth.
Okay, so awesome concept. Okay, so makes us like bees or ants. Okay.
And the reason the main character can think is because they had almost like a deformity in them at birth, in which the implant actually didn't work properly, and it wasn't injected in the right place.
Okay, so awesome. So the first thing is that having these thoughts, you are developing the fact that he thinks there's something horribly wrong with him at first, right? Is that how you're going?
It's more that he thinks for himself, and he thinks that everyone else just kind of agrees with everything too mindlessly, and he himself, he pretends that he also goes along with things just to kind of not stand out as much.
Okay, but being worried that he's going to stand out, right? Does he not question? Does he not question himself? Like, does he not? Why am I not like everybody else? Like, think of him as a teenager. You guys are all teenagers, right? Think of all the stresses you have about. I'm too odd. I'm not fitting in. I'm not. You know what I mean? So, can that experiences that you are having? Can that relate to your character at all? Can you get some character development out of that? Do you think?
Yeah. Is that he again kind of thinks about everything that he does, and he thinks, why is everyone just mindless that they're wrong with this book? And he doesn't think, why am I different? He thinks, why are other people different?
Okay, so you have him from the other perspective. He is thinking, but no, and it's good because you want him to be questioning, like, why do we always do this? And it should probably be something that's very mindless and seems to have no point, right? Like, every day they might troop down this long hall and punch in for no reason. They just punch in like a punch clock.
Oh.
You know, like something mindless that doesn't make any sense. That's just a control thing, right? Do any of you guys have any ideas that might help them here?
It is on Earth, right?
No,
It's
not
in
on Earth.
space, right?
So
They've left Earth because
Now, are they circling
they
Earth, or are they on some kind of pod that's going
They're
forever?
circling Earth.
They're circling Earth, so they're on a satellite city or whatever, right?
Is it like a lot of people in? Whole
It's-
population?
almost like a medium-sized town, almost, so that they can fully control everyone.
so like 50 to 100,000 people. Or?
Something along the lines of like 3,000-ish people, just
Oh,
to
okay.
keep it contained. And then again with the hive mind, they control the population to influence when people will die and when people will be born.
Is this all part of one big research project? Or?
It's the survival.
Oh, okay.
It's just the way that they designed. We're going to send some people. We're dying here on Earth. We're going to send people up to space, right? And this is the only way we're going to be able to survive.
And the original intent was that Earth was being uninhabitable, and so they sent out and they tried to preserve life in a controlled space. And over time, because it's on a bigger space station that can
Yeah.
monitor them and make sure, and in the case that Earth becomes habitable in the next 1,000 years, then they can actually rehabilitate it, go back and repopulate the Earth.
And that
Then they over time, the people who controlled it slowly died out or just integrated into society, so they themselves don't even know
Okay.
that they aren't on Earth.
And it's a really good the way you have it, because if you think about, I was talking the other week, I told you that modern man, at one point, our ancestors went down to 5,000 or less people, right? So we're all like cousins, right? So it would be quite similar, there would be a parallel there on your, you know what I mean? Everybody would be related, right? Everybody would, but they're all controlled and they don't know.
And even the leaders are also just part of the hive mind. And that they're almost not one center being, but they kind of are all just connected with no center.
So it's like bees. They have a queen, sort of thing. Except in this case, there isn't one. They're all just.
The queen is just another
It's just a-
entity that's also controlled.
There was I'm trying to think, and Bill Murray was in it. There was a movie that you might watch for some inspiration about, basically Earth was dying, so they went underground, and they made that city underground,
You mean the city of Ember?
City of Ember.
Hey, they made a book about that.
And there's a book by that, and we might be able to
You
find
mean
a
the book
copy.
series, and then the movie that was based off the book.
Yeah, but
They made a
we
movie
might,
about that, sorry.
that might give you
Yeah,
some
it's not
ideas
important.
of some issues that might come up. I think some of the things that you should think about is that
How did they even eat?
because
How did they even eat?
Yeah, like
they
online.
grew it, right? They grew stuff underground in.
No, I mean for his story. I know that
Yeah,
they were having
it-
food shortages in the city of Ember.
Yeah, like
It is the same thing that they just essentially took up a artificial piece of Earth and then just shot it into space.
okay, so
Had
yeah,
life evolve around that, and they have
hydroponics, right?
they make themselves work.
Yeah, so they got hydroponics, right, and stuff like that, right?
If you're going for like a soft sci-fi, then lots of research for that would help. I know that it helped for mine because I did a lot of historical research for that and a lot of geography and a lot of biome studies.
Yeah, but what we need to do here, what you need to do, and what you want to focus in, is what is the conflict? What are the issues? What's the problems? And what, in the end, has to be solved, right? So you've got a great concept. You have a main character, but you have to think of what are his problems, what are his conflicts, and what are the problems and the conflicts of the whole society locked in this orb or whatever you want to, it's a spaceship, right? What are things that might be coming up? What are something, and then you want to think, what is something that only somebody as an individual could resolve? Who doesn't think within the hive mind, within the narrow parameters. Someone who is capable of thinking outside the box. How would he resolve the big issue that's basically going to save everybody, right?
The intended ending that I had was that he attempted to go back and almost remove the hive mind, but again, everyone was so brainwashed to the point that they just saw him as this crazy person, and so they tried to kill him again, and he ends up realizing that society is too far deep into it, and
So he's like the lost bee that never came back.
And
then he just leaves and tries to go back to Earth.
well, the other movie you might look at, it's an old movie, you might look at it, and there's a book too, it's called Soylent Green.
I've only heard the joke Soylent Green is people.
Well, it's not, the whole concept of the movie and the book was that they resolved our population problems, that they basically everybody at 35 died. Everybody thought they were going somewhere. They were becoming the food, which was soylent green.
That kind of reminds me of The Giver.
Yeah, like so. That's just another thing that might give you some inspiration as to what are the conflicts in there, and where you want to go with your story, right? That now, I do think you need to look at what is his problems, and you think his problem is not fitting in. Is it kind of a Thanos thing where he's going to destroy the hive mind because he thinks it's the right thing to do, but maybe it's not.
But really, it's not.
Is it that kind of thing, or is it more like one of those old horror movies where, like Ants, where we don't get rid of them and they're coming for us, right?
There's a horror movie called Ants.
Yes. It's an old B horror movie where.
Isn't it called Them? Isn't it called Them?
Well, there's one called Ants.
Oh, I know.
There's a whole bunch of them. The Legend versus the Ants is another short story one, but so basically your ending that you're thinking about is not a positive ending.
It's more that
the hive wins out over the individual in the end, right?
And the way that he lived having the thought process was that he always kind of tried to stay away from other people as much as possible, so he could never really interact with them.
So
Ms. Ryan or anyone from the athletic department, please call the office. Ms. Ryan or anyone from the athletic department, please call the office. Thank you.
as you can tell, we're recording at a school.
If you didn't get that
the
from
end
the first
is that
episode.
he just tries to save himself over
everybody else. So his main problem, his main conflict is hiding his difference, right? Which is kind of like the conflict that we have with our character Darius in Malfunction, right? Where he is trying to hide the fact that he has the alien hand syndrome from the other students, so they don't think he's weird, right? Your characters, it might be so he isn't put down as defective.
And
Right.
he also, it isn't that he's trying to hide it, that he's defective, it's that he more just kind of does it so that he doesn't stand out, but he doesn't know the threat of him being defective and what that'll do.
Okay. Now let's go on. We give you some ideas. You gonna work with those?
I'll try.
Okay. Now let's try to actually write and plot a little, because that might help you. Okay. With you're saying you get written into a corner. If we had some written down things, we could help you get yourself out of that corner, right? Now, you have changed up on us. You were going to do one of your books, but you went back to an earlier book.
Yeah, I wanted to save this. Antinomia I have a complete story for Antinomia, but I got much more interested in writing the story that comes before, the first story, which I call Blue Asterisk. And for those at home, Blue Asterisk is basically a story of an exiled noble who becomes the emperor's right-hand man. And in doing so, he's basically one of the richest people in the nation, if not the world. But at the cost of doing any heinous act that the emperor wants to help him preserve his regime. And so the majority of the story is spent exploring how far this mage, nicknamed Archangel, the Emperor's Archangel, how far he will go to preserve the regime, and how many people are willing to suffer. Not willing. How many people is he willing to make suffer in order for him to be well off?
Okay, man, that's a good theme. You know, you think about things. This is a big question that came up during World War II a lot. We had a lot of, and they were probably not as old as your character. There was a lot of people who in 1819 who had to make decisions like that on both sides, like not just in Nazi Germany, but think about Stalin's Russia, right?
Oh yeah, no, he's conscripted at the age of 16.
Yeah, like, I mean, I'm just saying, there's a lot who had to make those decisions, right? So those are interesting moral dilemmas, and that makes for a very interesting conflict, which is going to make for an interesting character,
Yeah.
right? Now you have some of it. I saw you had the 34.
Of course. Yes.
All worked out.
I have a brief summary of the plot line for what I want to, for what characters I'm going to use, the sort of plot that I'm going to have for the next 10 years, and find some. And so my biggest problem is just the main concept, the main setting is just that I was trying to explore using our own history as sort of a guideline to see how a world would develop if humans had access to magic. And I opted for more of a soft magic system because it's more focused on the character than it is the world.
Yeah, and that's good. Now I think the next step. Now, did you already do character outlines?
That's the one part that I did not do.
Okay, because you don't necessarily, like, it depends on. I would. Now, as I told you, what I do, and part of the reason that I do this is I'm getting older. The gray hair's on the roof, and I might forget ideas, right? So I do the chapter by chapter, but as you see, it's very minimal, right? Because all I need is to remind me what I want to do in that chapter, right? But some people, they just have it all in their heads, right? Like Laurie, or it just might be really brief notes, and some people need to plan a little bit more. Do you feel ready to start your first chapter?
Of course.
And that. So
maybe not the first, because I still need some research settings. But I can certainly start writing the first chapter for that. Maybe not chapter 1.
Yeah.
But I can write 8 chapters.
Now, what I'm going to suggest is you don't forget our book. You know, like, that's the one thing about having you guys start your own books that I didn't want to get to the point where our book doesn't get done. Because remember, our book helps keep this going next year, and it helps bring new books to our library, like Laurie's books, right? You know, I think last year we managed to raise enough money for about 20 or 30 new books for the library, on top of what's their normal budget, right? So, which is great, because that's, you know what I mean? It's more to be exposed to, right? So let's not forget our main project, our main goal. And our main goal is to get a book done and published. So, you know, you guys have that sense of accomplishment too. And maybe get some more confidence in your own writing. Yeah. Let's hear about your 13 chapters.
Okay. Mine, it's a fantasy book, so it's based in this land where they're kind of human, but everyone has a magical ability. And my main character, she is, I call her the Elementalist because she is all different powers, and she lives on an island with her adoptive brother and father because her father's enemy, which I haven't really gone into how he knows them. Her family's very high up, but she doesn't know that. He wanted to take over her parents' kingdom, so he took her and dropped her off on an island, hoping that she wouldn't make it. But her adoptive father has the gift of the wind, so he's able to save her. And he's trained her to go and take back her kingdom from Alistair, who's from my characters' names, I actually use Greek gods and goddesses to represent them. The main character's name is Artemis because it's kind of like a strong female warrior. And then her adoptive brother's name is Attis. He has the earth element, and Attis is the god of fruit and agriculture. And then her adoptive father's name is Aelus, which is the god of the wind. And Alistair is the god of pain and destruction. And
that's Aeolus, isn't it?
Aeolus.
Yeah, Aeolus? Am I saying that right? The god of wind.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome concept.
It's really cool.
Awesome. I really like that you're going back to the Greek gods.
Which
and
I
that
love
does
that.
get done. You can also delve into maybe some other gods if you need to, like Egyptian or Roman or
as a kid,
Celtic.
I really liked Percy Jackson and all of Rick Riordan's writing.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of projects.
Yeah, well that's
different
that's great.
gods.
And there's a lot of gods, and I think I have some books for you.
I have a bunch at home as well.
And that has a lot. I do collect a lot of stuff like that. So that's awesome, and you got 13 chapters plotted out.
Yeah.
And now, have you a rough idea of where you want, like how many chapters you want?
I want to do 40 like the books we do.
Okay, no, and the reason why we do 40, and as I said, books do not have to be 40.
Mm-hmm.
The reason we do 40 is that because our chapters could be between 6 and 10 pages long, and for new writers, that's a nice, But if you look at Last Girl Lied To, I think it's 89.
Yeah, I don't even remember.
Or not
89
no,
chapters.
Some of
90,
them are like only like
92.
Yeah, I saw them.
And the thing is that some of them can be like just a page and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Or, as I said, you could have books that are only 10 chapters, and the chapters are like 30, 35. There is no set limit. There is no set structure that a book has to have. There is no set number of lines that a paragraph has to have. You know what I mean? So, like, it's what you see, what's in your head, what's in your imagination is your book. Go for it. So, and
changes from book to book too.
yeah, it does. Like, I'm just, and I've gotten into a habit of 40 chapter books. It just something I fell into, but I have books that are more chapters. I have books that are less chapters. It really depends on the book. Right? Now, I give you some ideas for yours, The Trench.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked you some questions. I asked you whether or not the trench was Satan, whether it could think for itself, whether it was alive, and whether it fed off the people who were down in it. And you were telling me some stuff. So have you worked since then?
I have, and I've set onto the idea of the whole being sentient, but not like it can talk and like do whatever humans can, but like what you said, it feeds off the people who go down there, but not like it eats them, more like it just
Absorbs their energy or
absorbs
something.
their energy, like a bit after bit. First takes away their like I don't know,
Higher functions, maybe higher brain
like
function.
like their navigation or something.
Yeah,
So like
okay.
they can't figure out a way out, which
Okay.
then means they're trapped in there, and
Okay, so maybe it's messing with the higher brain functions, so they get confused, right? And maybe they hallucinate a bit.
It leaves, after all the energy, soul, whatever's taken out of the people, it leaves the corpses to be eaten by whatever else lives down there.
Uh-huh. Awesome. And now, did you think about when I was I was talking about, you have your main character who didn't go to school that day, was late when the school fell into the trench. And did you think about the group that he was going to gather
Yes, I did.
to go? And
I did sort of. I'm not complete the group yet. I've gotten like a few people. Like so far, I've got his friends, and then he's gotten like one person. It's not necessarily their friend, but he sees him quite a bit. He's like that. Let me put this like that one person who comes to school wearing a leather jacket for no reason. He's all like.
Okay, so he's your bad boy that we talked about,
Yeah.
the one who skips out of school. So he wasn't there because he skipped.
Yeah.
You know, but he had some connection to him at some point,
Yeah, like
maybe in grade school.
they used to be friends, but now
Yeah.
they're not. They're more distant.
Yeah. Okay. So you got him. Did you think about like some shop owner? You know, that
Yeah,
had like
like-
a D&D shop. or
I do
the-
have a guy. He works at like the corner store or something like that, and he's like he's got this stash of ninja stars. Don't ask me why, but he's got like a collection of ninja stars in his house.
Okay. Yeah, so that's what you wanted, some weird adult type person, and that. So so you're still thinking about a couple other characters.
Yeah,
You might just need one more.
I could, like this totals up to like 5 now.
Because you
6.
have the two characters that are his best friend and the girl he kind of crushes on, who are trapped down there that they're going to go.
That's the reason they go down
Yeah.
there.
You might want just to have some complications. You might have a girl who's crushing on him. Join him.
I'm not good with romance, so I don't know how to like.
Well, it doesn't really have to be romance
It
at
doesn't
this
have to be
age,
romance,
right? Like they don't have to be dating.
It could be.
It just could be like, think about grade school crushes, right? Like even at your age, grade 9,
Yeah,
people can just have crushes.
And if that doesn't work, just read about others' experiences of breakups.
Yeah, but I mean, it just can be, as he's always liked the one girl who's trapped, she's always liked him, right? But it could give you some interesting relation, like, you know what I mean, characterization, and you can add some complications in there into your story, right? That could be cause problems down the road, right? You know what I mean? And then, so I'm just saying, just think about it. It's just something that will give you an opportunity to add some depth to your story, but you don't have to go there because it's your story, right? And if you're not too comfortable with it, then don't go there, right? Add somebody's little brother who's always tagging along, right?
I had this other idea where, like, you know those kids movies where, like, some people go adventuring in, like, some weird fantasy world, go through a portal, whatever. Big weird things come along and attack them, but then they find the one that they keep as a pet.
Yeah.
I don't do that.
So they're gonna find something in the trench, something weird that they're gonna bring out, and that, you know, nowadays, you know what you want to do is make it something really slimy. Because like,
I mean,
Get a Stranger Thing.
yeah.
Question. Do you know about a series known as the SCP Foundation?
yes, I do. I'm taking some inspiration from that to create the creatures.
Ah, cool.
Yeah. And
I feel like
that's
you
some-
might like 999.
Yep, that's my
That's
favorite.
that-
That's my favorite. Can't
You
get
know,
enough of
just
that.
something. You remember Slimer from Ghostbusters?
Yeah.
Everybody likes
Who
Slimer.
doesn't like slime?
You know, I mean,
18 hot dogs at once.
yeah, and just like, but you know. So we are really doing well with our stories. I'm really impressed with them. They all look interesting. I'd like to read all of them.
I
Got some really cool ideas.
Yeah, and we will hopefully, if we get ours done soon enough. We got ours done last year pretty soon. We had it up and published, and we're selling it by December. So if we get ours done, we will definitely, what we will do is work on yours.
Ooh.
Okay?
Yeah, I could use some help.
And I
That's
definitely
motivation.
want to get to the point where I'm editing your books and getting them ready for publication. Okay? But remember, it doesn't have to be done this year. Okay? A lot of you are just in grade 9. And even if you're about to graduate, you know where I live. I'm always here. Okay.
Oh.
You got my email address. You got my Facebook. You got all my social media accounts to hold hostage. So I definitely. It doesn't matter when you guys finish your books. I will edit them, and I will help you publish them. Okay. So don't lose focus on the book that we're writing on, but don't give up on your books because they're all great stories, and I think all of them potential bestsellers.
Sounds like you guys have a lot of imagination, good ideas. That's awesome.
So I want to thank our guests for being here. Thank you very much, Laurie, for coming. It was a lot of fun having you, and I'm sure the kids learned a lot.
Yeah, I did.
As always, I got to remind you to like and what's the other one?
Like, comment, share, and subscribe.
Share and subscribe.
Do it.
And that, and hopefully we get more of you watching from the school here. And that, and can someone hit the stuff?
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
I got it. Oh, hold on.
I did
This
one.
is a long outro. Bye.